ride is going okay so far. So. Yep. All right. All right, good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? Good. So I am here on behalf of Mayor Pugh. My name is Dr. Lena Wen of the Baltimore City Health Commissioner. And I'm here to, first of all, thank our Team 26, our America's bike messengers, from what I understand, right? Well done. Very happy to be here to stand with you as we raise awareness about the public health crisis of gun violence. And I was reading about the interview that one of your leaders did. And I heard this particular quote that you said, "We will not rest until our voices spur leaders to action." And today we're here with leaders across Baltimore City, across our state, people like Attorney General Frosch, our State Senator Bill Ferguson, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. We also have our team from Marylanders to Prevent Gun Violence. We've got Chief Melissa Hyatt. I'm sure I'm forgetting other people here as well. Oh, I'm also told we have Charles Connor here representing Senator Van Hollen. And I stand here with many of our exceptional leaders in the city and the state. You know, there are those who will question whether violence is a health issue. Well, they haven't seen what we've seen. The bullet that paralyzed my 14-year-old patient from the neck down. The bullet that pierced the brain of my 3-year-old patient. I've seen that bullet traumatize our siblings and haunt our parents. I've seen it destroy their lives. This is what happens in our communities every single day. We see the blood of our patients and the cries of their families in our ERs, in our streets, in our city. I stand here today as a doctor. We have spoken up, all of us doctors actually have spoken up across the country on what science shows us to be true, which is that gun violence is a disease. It's a disease that spreads from person to person just like other diseases. Gun violence is contagious, but it also has a cure, and it can be prevented. The science is clear too that there is no question that gun violence is a public health crisis. It's an epidemic. Last year in the US, there were 30,000 people who were shot and killed. What if I told you that there were 30,000 people last year who died from Ebola or any other illness? We would study it, we would treat it, we would do everything we can to address it and prevent it. Well, in Baltimore City, we're proud of the collaborative efforts under the leadership of Mayor Catherine Pugh to stop violence before it kills. Our Safe Streets program, and we have some of our Safe Streets people here today standing with us in our orange shirts. Our Safe Streets program hires outreach workers, many of whom are returning citizens, to walk the streets of the city and stop violence where they see it before that bullet hits a person. Last year, our Safe Streets workers stopped over 700 conflicts, nearly 80% of which were likely or very likely to result in gun violence. We also invest in other programs like Vision for Baltimore, which aims to get glasses for every child who needs them, because we believe that getting our children, helping our children to read, helping our families to succeed, preventing kids from getting lead poisoned, they're also part of our public health efforts to stop the epidemic of gun violence. There's a lot more for us to do, and that's why I'm here to stand very proudly on behalf of Mayor Pugh with the Team 26 team, with the Team 26 and all of our leaders in the city and state to say unequivocally that gun violence is a public health issue, to commit to action to stopping this fatal epidemic, and to doing everything we can to save lives, not just today, but every day. And now I'm delighted to introduce one of our other fearless leaders here in our city, one of our excellent partners, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wen. Good afternoon. I stand before you today to welcome Team 26 to Baltimore. I would like to thank Team 26 for bringing attention to what should be, as Dr. Wen has already eloquently proclaimed, should be a public health crisis. Gun violence in this country affects each and every one of us, from Connecticut to Baltimore. And being in office as a State's Attorney for Baltimore City for the past 2.5 years, we've seen firsthand how gun violence decimates our communities. In 2015, there were over 344 homicides. 300 of those homicides, that's 87%, were committed by the use of a firearm. In 2016, there were 318 homicides, 274. 86% of those murders were committed by the use of a firearm. Just this year, in 2017, and we're only not even a week into May, there have been 117 homicides, 94. That's 80% of those that were murdered were committed by the use of a firearm. These are not just numbers. These are mothers, fathers, sisters, sons, daughters. These are families. These are communities that are being impacted each and every day in our city, right here in Baltimore. You see, it impacts us all. So we stand here together collaboratively because we cannot walk away from the situation and the reality of what we see each and every day. Years before I became State's Attorney for Baltimore City, I too was impacted by gun violence. When my cousin, who grew up with me like a brother, was killed right outside of our home in broad daylight when he was mistaken as a neighborhood drug dealer. An image that to this day is still branded in my mind. We have got to stop being so complacent. That was my first introduction to the criminal justice system. Having to see my cousin with all these dreams and all these aspirations who's going to a grave, and the individual responsible for his death was also 17 years old. What does that tell us? That means that we need to start getting to our young people, because those numbers that I talked about, a lot of those young people, those are the ones that are committing it. We need to figure out ways in which we can get to these young people before they get to the criminal justice system. And that's what we've pledged to do collaboratively. This is one of the reasons why, working with the police department, we've created the Gun Violence Enforcement Division within the State's Attorney's Office, so that we're strategically targeting violent repeat offenders, but not only targeting them, we are cohabitating in the Office of the State's Attorney with the police department so that we can better collaborate in order to prosecute these offenders successfully. This is the reason why we have a 93% felony conviction rate. We must do more about these guns on our streets. This is the reason why the Commissioner and I supported Senate Bill 826 and House Bill 1396, which would have imposed mandatory minimum sentences on repeat gun offenders. We wanted to ensure that habitual gun offenders suffered severe penalties for carrying illegal firearms. And unfortunately, neither of those bills were even brought to a vote. All across this nation, gun violence lives and decimates urban communities. And that's precisely why we're here today. Despite all the men, women, and children suffering at the hands of gun violence and its collateral consequences, we still have work to do legislatively, locally, statewide, and federally. Which is why we applaud Team 26 for bringing awareness to violence prevention and gun violence prevention. Thank you. We honor you for your noble commitment and your cause. We honor you for keeping the memory of those beautiful children alive in our hearts and in our minds. And here in Baltimore, we thank and commend you for your commitment to raise awareness about this extremely important cause, which is clearly a public health crisis. Before I go any further, I wanted to be able to present to Team 26 a citation in which it reads, "It is with great pride and esteem the Office of the State's Attorney for Baltimore City bestows a special recognition upon Team 26 in recognition of your tremendous contributions to the prevention of gun violence in America. Congratulations for yet another successful ride. We appreciate all that you do to keep the memory of Sandy Hook alive and to prevent a similar tragedy from ever happening again. This honor is truly deserved and was well earned on the 4th day of May 2017. God bless." And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge this wonderful man that is about to come forward, and this is our Attorney General, statewide Attorney General Brian Frosh.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Yeah. So it's a great pleasure for me to be here. Thank you very much to State's Attorney Mosby, Dr. Wen, my friend and colleague Bill Ferguson, and especially to Team 26. We're delighted to have you guys back here in Baltimore. I'm very proud. You gave me one of those jerseys. I've worn it repeatedly throughout the winter. I get great comments when I'm out on the bike trail. Great shirt. People go by me and I get all the time, thank you for wearing that jersey. Bill Ferguson and I were in the Maryland Senate in 2013 when we passed the Firearm Safety Act. The Maryland Firearm Safety Act was the culmination of many years worth of effort, and the tragedy at Newtown gave special impetus to it, and among other things, it bans the sale of assault weapons in the state of Maryland. And ironically, that provision, there are many important provisions of this historic act. It requires a license for somebody to purchase a handgun, and you have to give your fingerprints to the state police to do it. It allows the state police greater oversight over gun stores, but it bans the sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines for guns. And that is the first provision of our law that's been challenged. And we beat it back in the United States District Court just up the street. And that decision was reversed in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. We asked for the full Fourth Circuit to hear that case and won a resounding victory. What the full Fourth Circuit said was the Second Amendment does not protect these weapons of war. The weapon that was used to murder the children and teachers in Newtown is a weapon of war not protected by the Second Amendment. We just learned today that the plaintiffs in that case, the NRA and their allies, are going to ask for a writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court. We are confident, even with the Supreme Court with Justice Gorsuch on it, we are confident that this decision will be upheld. We thank Team 26 and the great advocates here in Baltimore City and around the state for your continued work on this extremely important issue. Thank you for continuing to remind us and to remind the rest of the nation about the tragedy that took place in Newtown, and we hope that never, ever happens again. I think it is my privilege to then turn the microphone over to Baltimore City's Chief Hyatt.
On behalf of Commissioner Kevin Davis, who apologizes for being unable to be here personally, I would like to welcome Team 26 back to Baltimore. Our police department salutes your team for the hard work that you are doing to draw attention to the need for tougher gun laws with the ultimate goal of reducing gun violence. There is no question that each and every jurisdiction, from the smallest and quietest of towns to the largest of cities, is vulnerable to gun violence. As these tragedies continue across our nation, we must be persistent in our efforts. Our collaborative, committed efforts to curb gun violence are done in the memory of so many people who were taken from us far too soon. From the 20 children and 6 teachers from Sandy Hook Elementary School to all of the other victims of gun violence across the state of Maryland and across our entire nation. These diligent efforts are done in the honor of preserving the lives and futures of those who will benefit from living in a safer environment. The timing of your ride is particularly meaningful as you're wearing our Baltimore Police patch on your right arm, as next week is the start of National Police Week, where police officers from around the world will gather in Washington, D.C. to honor officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty. Many of these officers, sadly, were killed by firearms. I think that all of us can share in the pain of losing a loved one, a friend, or a colleague from senseless gun violence. Thank you for taking the time to stop in our city. I followed your journey last year and know that this is really an incredible expedition that you're currently on. Your ride from our nation's capital back home is a long and challenging one, but with a truly noble cause and a great message. We wish you a safe trip home and congratulate you on your efforts. And now I am introducing Senator Bill Ferguson.
Thank you, Chief Hyatt, and thank you, State's Attorney Mosby, Attorney General Frosch, Commissioner Wen, and most importantly, thank you, Team 26. We shouldn't have to be here. We shouldn't have to do this year after year after year. When is enough enough? It's not just Newtown. It's not just Baltimore. This is a public health crisis in the making across our country. I look in the eyes of my 4-year-old son, Caleb, and I see how guns are treated. As a 4-year-old, how normalized he is to the concept of a gun. How easy it is for someone to access a gun in any state across this country, despite some of the great work that we've done to put restrictions in place. When is enough enough? There are 3 messages that I'd like to convey. I want to thank Team 26, I want to apologize to Team 26, and I want to make a commitment to Team 26. First and foremost, I want to thank them. I want to thank them for not letting us forget the horrific tragedy that happened in Newtown. However, it's not just Newtown, and that is what these amazing folks behind me represent. They are traveling through these United States, from here to Delaware, back up to Newtown, to say this problem is not localized, it is national. And we have to remember that we need to take steps everywhere. Second, I want to apologize. I want to apologize to Team 26 that you have to keep doing this. As an elected leader who works with elected officials, we need the courage, we need the backbone, we need the impetus to continue to fight this fight and solve this public health crisis. It is inexcusable that we are still here today fighting this same battle. Finally, I want to make a commitment. I commit to you all, Team 26, as you ride, I will fight with my colleagues to do whatever we can to address not only the access to firearms, but the root causes that lead to gun violence. The issues of domestic violence, of substance abuse, and of poverty that allow a gun to be used to devastate communities. It's unacceptable, and it's my commitment here today to fight on your behalf. Thank you all, and thanks for being here this afternoon. It is now my humble honor to introduce Monty Frank, the esteemed leader of Team 26.
Thank you, Senator. You know, as we were planning this ride in the aftermath of the shooting at the Sandy Hook School down the street from where I live, I learned that the city of Baltimore held a vigil right here for the tragic loss of our 20 beautiful children and 6 educators. And at that point, it opened my eyes to the scourge of gun violence, a public health crisis that impacts not only my community, but impacts every community across the United States. So I want to return the favor. I'd like to ask everyone to close their eyes and think about the 26 that we lost in Newtown. Think about the gun violence that has occurred in this city. Think about our brother Mark's loss since January. Think about the 130,000 Americans who have been killed due to gun violence since the shooting at the Sandy Hook School. Thought about that? Are you ready to say enough is enough? Are we ready to come together as Americans to end this public health crisis? I know the answer is yes, and I know that the public servants who are behind me and the police department and the medical community are all working hard together to make that happen. You know, it's really nice to come and to get a nice piece of paper that we can frame, and I'm truly honored, I'm truly humbled. The tragedy at Sandy Hook was a terrible day. That's a weekend in Chicago. It's a month in Baltimore. When is America going to start paying attention to all of those deaths in the same manner that they paid attention to the tragedy at the Sandy Hook School? Every life matters, and we need to come together to make sure that our elected officials understand that gun violence occurs in every city, in every town, in every church, can happen in every church, movie theater, and to come upon us to come together. Now, this is our 5th ride, and in that time, Congress has done absolutely nothing, hasn't passed one single piece of legislation to curb gun violence. And by refusing to act, Congress remains complicit in the carnage that is occurring in our streets. For 4 years, we rode from Sandy Hook to Washington to deliver the message to the American people that enough is enough. But it appears that Congress is more interested in lining their pockets with NRA money than protecting the American people. And worse yet, there are bills pending in Congress now, if you could believe it, that would make it worse. Now, states like Connecticut and Maryland and many of the states that we ride through have worked hard to not only pass legislation that will reduce gun violence in our communities and have defended those laws, as Attorney General Frosch has done so well, and we followed that and we were thrilled with the en banc decision from the 4th Circuit. But the NRA is now asking for a National Reciprocity Act of 2017, which would mean that if you could conceal carry in any state, you could then, in your home state, you could then travel to any state in the country under those same rules. So think about it. In Vermont or Missouri, among other states, you can conceal carry without a permit and without any training. Under this act that is being proposed, you can then come to Maryland or come to Connecticut and conceal carry without a permit and without any changing, thereby completely subverting the good efforts that have taken place in our state houses to make our citizens safer. This is truly a race to the bottom, and we need to stand up and make sure that that law is defeated. So now we will ride from here home with Congress at our back and through communities like Baltimore and states like Delaware and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and then Connecticut, where our elected officials and people are actually working to reduce the scourge of gun violence. And what I say to you is, it's now time to fight back, that we need to form our own grassroots militias. We too need to bear arms. And I'm not talking about handguns or AR-15s. We don't need 30-round magazines or silencers, but we need to be armed with the power of the people, the power of moms, the power of the voices of 90% of Americans who favor universal background checks, yet Congress refuses to act. Armed with the power of advocates like the public servants standing with us today, and other mayors and law enforcement and doctors and teachers, armed with the power of survivor families, armed with the power of survivors like Gabby Giffords, who we stood with yesterday. Like all great movements, we will never give up. We must resist and persist. So from now until Sunday, this team will pedal up and down hills through some storms that are coming our way. We'll battle headwinds, get around the potholes. We've got tough days ahead, but like all of us, we must resist and persist until we get home safely. Join our ride today, and every day, ride on.
Wow. Thank you very much again to Team 26 for your exceptional work. We really wouldn't be here today without you. But we're here today because of you. We're here today because of our commitment to you. And we're here to join you to cycle with you, to march with you, to pledge with you every step of the way, to commit to action every day. Thank you very much again, everyone, for coming today, and thank you for riding through Baltimore.
Ladies and gentlemen, may we come together tightly for a group photo, please? Everyone come together tightly, please. We're looking. Matter of fact, Dale, can we move this over here, please? Okay. Ready? Up one. Over. Down.